I'm the creator of GuitarU.com, and I would like to welcome you to my course on guitar chords, chord mechanics, and lots of interesting ways to use and play chords. If you're a beginner, an intermediate, a teacher, or an experienced player, I guarantee you will find something here. In this course, I will begin by re-examining the basic 15 open string chords that every guitarist learns when he or she begins to play. And I'll build on that skill set until you have a professional understanding of chords and their uses. This course contains videos, audios, text, graphics, and interactive training movies that are designed to give you a music school experience for free. This course is done at your pace, at your speed. There's no time limits, constraints, or suggested levels of progress, or proficiency based on some arbitrary standard of time like a semester. Some lessons may take you a half hour, some you may not want to do at all, some may take you weeks. Visit and revisit this course often. Do the training exercises regularly, print them out, study the graphics, and learn to play all the musical examples, many of which I've written especially for this course and to impart these principles very, very quickly. This material has taken me years and years to assemble, and I've tested it on literally hundreds of guitar students. That being said, let's dive right in. To study the material in my chords course, I'm assuming a couple of things. You have a basic knowledge of how to read chord diagrams. You know how to do a strumming pattern, and you have an understanding of whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes. Not that you need killer reading skills, you just need a basic understanding of what you're looking at when you see printed music, and the ability to follow along with your finger when you hear it played in time. That's it. Also, I highly recommend you enlist a qualified teacher to help you with this material if it becomes confusing or overwhelming in any way. First, let's discuss dealing with chord changes that use the standard open string chords, the first position chords. Many people find it difficult to change from one chord to the next when they're learning songs or learning to play the guitar. Remember these words: instantly, automatically, and effortlessly. That's what you need to do if you're going to be a good guitar player. You need to change chords. How? Instantly, automatically, and effortlessly. If I were to just say to you, well, the way you do that is practice and practice until your fingers bleed and blah, 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 I would be an awful teacher. Instead, I encourage you to think deeply and in great detail about what changing a chord actually is. Going from one chord to the next is not one thing. It's actually many things. For example, let's start out with the all-time classic progression, E, A, D, A. The first thing we need to do is we need to learn how to make an E shape. So you do that one finger at a time, watching what you're doing. Finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, let go. 1, 2, 3, let go. Okay, now we need to get to the A. And when you think of that change, what do? Do you do one thing? No. Here are all the things you do. You release the E. You put your first finger on the second fret of string 4. You put your second finger on the second fret of string 3. You put your third finger on the second fret of string 2, and then you get your arm out there a little bit so you hear that top E string. So going from E to A is not one thing, it's three things. I encourage you to think of everything you do with this type of detail. Think of all the individual movements of your fingers. Here, we can hone in on this detailed type of thinking. Notice how the fingers have been colored to impart the concept that each one of these fingers is the individual member of a team. Take a second to cycle back and forth between the E and the A. Notice what each of your fingers does during this process. There's no hurry, there's no rush, there's no time constraints. E, A, E. Now let's take a second to visualize E major. And remember that question, where does my first finger go? If you've been visualizing and studying the diagrams, when you place your first finger in fret 1 of string 3, fingers 2 and 3 will automatically and magically fall right into place. Remember to visualize. Remember to move one finger at a time. And remember to ask yourself, where does my first finger go? Now let's apply that thinking to good old A major. Where does my first finger go? It goes on fret 2 of the D string. Fingers 2 and 3 line up neatly on the same fret, each taking their own string. When you get finger 1 on fret 2 of the D string, if you've been visualizing, if you've been verbalizing, fingers 2 and 3 will magically fall into place. Take a second to jump on and off that A chord. Finger 1, finger 2, finger 3. Now take a quick second here to jump back and forth between E and A, using these photos as your guide to train your fingers individually. Detailed thinking for the E to A transition. This is a way of thinking, a good thought process, a way to add an organizational principle to your practice sessions. Jump on an E chord. Start by playing the E chord. Remember where finger 1 goes. Have a clear mental visual image of the E chord. Release the E chord. Move finger 1 where you would move it if you were playing an A chord. Release that finger and jump back to E. Again, where does finger 1 go? Get a good mental visual image of the E chord. Release that E chord. Place fingers 1 and 2 where they would be placed were you playing an A chord. Get a mental image of that, go back to E. Release the E. And finally, add finger 3 to your movement and complete the A chord. This represents your way of thought, your way of thinking about making chord transitions. And finally, here are a few different perspectives on the E major to A major transition. Practice the chord slowly, making a special mental note in regard to your first finger. Your first finger is the captain of the team. Also, visualizing is very important, as I have said many times in this lesson. Keep your eyes moving between your fretting hand, the guitar diagram, and the chord frame. In this way, you will gain a clear mental image of everything you want to play. Remember, effortlessly, automatically, and instantly. Remember, where does my first finger go? Your eyes program your hands. This brings me to one of my best and most favorite thoughts I have had in my journey as a guitarist and a teacher, and it's this. Any movement that you want to do instantly, automatically, and effortlessly, reflexively, must first be reduced to a thought. I often tell my students to view the fingers of their fretting hand as a team with 4 individual players. Each one of those individual players must be given their instructions separately. The same thing applies to transitioning back to the chord, or just learning how to play one chord. Put your first finger on fret 1. Put your second finger on fret 2, whatever. Whatever those individual instructions are, articulate them and think of them in your head. Pay attention with this type of detail to everything you do on the guitar. That's one of the ways I taught myself to learn the guitar, to play the guitar well, and to impart my knowledge quickly. Train your fingers individually.